The desert is an inhospitable place. Intense heat, little to no apparent water, sand vipers, the like. It's long been held to be one of the toughest environments to survive in, and one of the most common reasons that people don't make it out of the desert alive is water. Water. We take it for granted. In many countries, you can simply go to any faucet, turn a handle, and have unlimited access to clean drinking water. In the desert, you won't be so lucky. There are no lakes, rivers, or streams. In fact, it might seem like there isn't water anywhere, but there is. If you can memorize a simple 15-word rhyme, you have a better chance at surviving in any desert you happen to find yourself stranded in. Let's get into it. Quick announcement, if you guys haven't signed up for Mindtribe Friday, you can have a memory or productivity tip sent to you via text message every Friday, like the one found in this video. All you have to do is text the word Mindtribe to 555-888 and follow the prompt. Alright, now there are hundreds of forums, blog posts, and videos online for how to obtain water in the desert, but they all come down to several general principles which can all be captured in a rhyme. Now, memorizing 15 words is difficult, so we first have to make the words sound catchy when said together. And then we have to make the words into a rhyme to make them even easier to remember. And lastly, we need to create images that represent the words and imagine them happening somewhere to make the phrase truly unforgettable. Some of these words may seem a little bit strange when said in sequence, but sometimes they have to be in order to adhere to the criteria I just mentioned and to make them memorable. Don't let the apparent strangeness of the words throw you off. The first word of our phrase is desert. This is the first word because it helps us to remember what this phrase is about. The second word is wet, reminding us that our first thought should be to look around the desert from a high vantage point for any obvious damp ground. The third word of the phrase will be green, reminding us to also look for any areas of thick green vegetation such as bushes or trees. The fourth, fifth, and sixth words are polar, dark, floor. Polar reminds us to look for polar or north-facing canyons. These canyons should be shaded or dark, and our best bet will be to look along the canyon floor, or the floor. So polar, dark, floor. Seventh and eighth words are alien and careens. Alien is an outsider, so we're reminded to look along the outside edge of a dry riverbed around which the water used to careen. Okay, so we're looking for a bend in the riverbed. So alien careens. Our ninth and 10th words are toes of core. Toes reminds us to look at the bottom part or the base of desert rock outcroppings, the toe-like area. The desert rock outcroppings are part of the core of the earth. So that's where the core comes from. So toes of core. The 11th, 12th, and 13th words are primer, dune, and sheen. So a primer is a first thing. So we're reminded to look behind the first sand dune, or dune, of a dry desert lake, at the edge of a dry desert lake, which when it was full of water had a certain sheen to it. So we have primer, dune, sheen. The last words of our phrase are chitin and phor. Chitin is the molecular material which makes up the hard outer shell of insects. It reminds us to look for any place where there are insects nearby, as this indicates water. Phor reminds us of four-legged animals and birds, which often leave trails and pathways leading to and from water sources. So chitin and phor. So now we have our entire rhyme. We have desert wet greens, polar dark floor, alien careens, toes of core, primer dune sheen, chitin phor. Okay, so that's the entire rhyme. So practice saying that until you're comfortable with it and it rolls off the tongue. Now we're going to create images that represent these words. So feel free to pause the video and create your own words. I'm going to show you the ones that I used. Okay, so for the first words, desert wet greens. I imagine that there is a slightly chubby Greek kid and he has a green olive wreath around his head and he's sliding down a wet slip and slide in the desert. Okay, so desert wet greens. For the next words, polar dark floor. I imagine that the kid slides off the edge of the slip and slide into this glacial crevasse at the North Pole. Okay, so he falls down this glacial crevasse and it's very dark in there, and he hits the floor. Okay, so polar dark floor. Desert wet greens, polar dark floor. For the words alien careens, I imagine there is a giant alien UFO which has been searching for the boy all along, in which careens towards the crevasse, trying to catch up to him when it sees that he's fallen inside. So alien careens. For the next words, toes of core, I imagine that at the bottom of the crevasse, the boy has discovered a secret ice door leading to the core of the earth. And standing guard of this door are 2 Christmas nutcrackers, which are dancing on their toes. So toes of core. Okay, so the whole thing, desert wet greens, polar dark floor, alien careens, toes of core. For the words primer dune sheen, I imagine that the boy is let inside the door to discover a giant Christmas candy wonderland. He is immediately shuttled to a classroom where he is given a primer on the laws of the Candyland. But he becomes frustrated trying to read the complicated handout, and so he throws it down, saying that he's done. Except he says it with an accent, so it sounds more like Dune. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots a popsicle stick that has a certain sheen to it, which he grabs and proceeds to eat. So we have primer, we have Dune, and we have sheen. So the whole thing is desert wet greens, polar dark floor, alien careens, toes of core, primer dune sheen. For the last words, chitin in 4, I imagine that the boy, to escape from the Candyland, creates a kite for chitin that has 4 sides to it. He catches a cold updraft and he flies away. Are you still with me? So the entire thing is desert wet greens, polar dark floor, alien careens, toes of core, primer dune sheen, chitin 4. Now what I want you to do is I want you to picture the scene that we just mentioned happening somewhere. So I want you to take all of the pictures, combine them into a tight space, and imagine them all happening on something in your home, such as a sofa, a chair, a cupboard, a desk, etc. So that every time you see it, you'll be reminded of the images, and then of the words those images represent, and then of the survival information that those words mean. You can also picture the scene happening in a panoramic image, which you can find on 360cities.com, which you can also bookmark and save for later, which has an additional benefit. There you have it, our 15-word phrase on how to find water in the desert. With our images, this phrase, and a little bit of upfront practice, you'll be able to remember this information wherever you are in the world, even in the desert. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and reply to the main comment thread if you have any questions. Thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.